6 months had passed since the battle at Kepler Station. The galaxy had changed in those 6 months, and it had changed because of one slow, ugly human ship. Captain Jack Morrison walked through the new shipyard orbiting Earth. Through the massive windows, he could see 12 ships being built. They all looked like the USS Tortoise, big gray rectangular blocks with too much armor and oversized engines. But now, nobody was laughing at the design. "The USS Elephant will be ready next month," Paul Davis said, walking beside him. "The USS Rhino 2 weeks after that." Jack smiled at the names. After the Tortoise's success, Earth's military had decided to name all the new warships after slow, heavy animals. It was their way of making a point. "Any word from the frontier?" Jack asked. "The swarm hasn't been seen since the battle, but other hostile forces are taking notice. The Ravagers turned back from Vorthon space without attacking. The Shadow Fleet canceled their raid on the Melanite mining colonies." "They're scared," Jack said. "They should be," Paul replied. "The story has spread across the galaxy. Everyone knows what happened at Kepler Station. One human ship defeated 5,000 swarm vessels." They entered a conference room where Lisa Park was waiting with Amy Chen and Ryan Torres. On the display screen was a map of the galaxy, showing Alliance space and the surrounding threats. "We have a problem," Lisa said without greeting them. "The Alliance wants us to lead their new combined fleet." Jack sat down heavily. "We've only been members for 5 years. Now they want us in charge?" Admiral Kex Theta insisted, Amy said. "He told the Alliance Council that humans understand war in a way other races don't. He said our primitive thinking is exactly what they need." Ryan pulled up tactical displays. "They're building ships based on our designs. The Zephyrians hate how slow they are, but they're doing it anyway. The Vorthons are replacing their quantum drives with armor. Even the Melanites are trading their plasma weapons for kinetic railguns. They're trying to copy us," Jack said. "But copying the technology isn't enough. They need to understand the philosophy behind it." A communication signal interrupted them. Katie Ross's voice came through the speaker. "Captain, we have visitors. 3 swarm ships just entered Earth's solar system." Everyone jumped to their feet. "Battle stations?" Ryan asked. "Wait," Katie continued. "They're transmitting a message. They want to talk." 30 minutes later, Jack stood in the Earth Defense Command Center. On the main screen, a swarm representative appeared. It looked like a mixture of insect and machine, with multiple eyes and metallic limbs. When it spoke, its voice was a combination of buzzing and electronic tones. "Captain Morrison," it said, "I am what you would call an ambassador. The swarm wishes to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" Jack asked. "A non-aggression pact. We will not attack human space or your allies. In return, you will not use your nanobots against us." General Sam Brooks, Earth's military commander, stepped forward. "You attacked us first. Why should we make any deals with you?" The swarm ambassador's multiple eyes focused on him. "Because we have learned something. For 1,000,000 years we have grown by adapting to our enemy's technology. We became whatever we needed to become to win. But humans, you are different." "Explain," Jack said. "You do not try to be advanced. You do not compete with complexity. You use simple solutions that work. We cannot adapt to that. Our entire existence is based on evolution and adaptation, but you cannot evolve to stop a piece of metal moving at high speed. You cannot adapt to armor that is just thick steel. You cannot become immune to being eaten by nanobots that only follow 3 simple commands." The room was silent as the humans absorbed this. The swarm, the terror of the galaxy, was admitting they couldn't beat human tactics. "You fear us," Lisa said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," the ambassador said simply. "We fear you because you are not playing the same game as everyone else. Every race tries to advance, to become more sophisticated. You do the opposite. You look at a problem and ask, what is the simplest solution? That terrifies us." Jack exchanged looks with General Brooks. "We'll consider your proposal, but understand this. If you attack any Alliance member, we won't just use nanobots. We'll show you what humans do when we're really angry." "Understood. We will wait for your answer." The communication ended. The room erupted in conversation, but Jack walked to the window and looked out at Earth. His home planet hung in space, blue and white and beautiful. Ellen White joined him. "They're scared of us, Jack. The swarm that destroyed 12 civilizations is scared of humans." "It's not just the swarm," Jack said. "I've been getting reports from across the galaxy. Pirates are avoiding human trade routes. The Crimson Empire canceled their expansion plans. Even the mysterious Void Hunters have sent diplomatic messages. All because of one battle? All because we showed them that advanced doesn't mean better. We showed them that humans think differently." Steve Johnson entered the room with news. "Captain, you need to see this. The Alliance just sent the final design plans for their new fleet." On the display, Jack saw hundreds of ships. They all had the same basic design as the Tortoise: thick armor, kinetic weapons, simple but effective systems. But each race had added their own touches. The Zephyrian versions had better engines that made them slightly faster. The Vorthan versions had crystal armor layers mixed with metal. The Melanite versions had plasma-heated kinetic rounds. "They're learning," Jack said with satisfaction. "They're not just copying us. They're taking our ideas and improving them." "Sir," Amy called out, "I'm receiving a priority message from the Alliance Council. They're officially offering humanity the position of Strategic Defense Coordinator for all Alliance forces." "General," Brooks whistled, "from the new kids to the leaders in 5 years. That has to be a record." Jack thought about it. Humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance as the primitive newcomers. Their ships were mocked. Their technology was laughed at. Their soldiers were dismissed as using outdated equipment. Now, 6 months after one battle, humanity was being asked to lead the defense of the entire Alliance. Not because they had the fastest ships or the most advanced weapons, but because they had something more valuable: a different way of thinking. "Tell the Alliance we accept," Jack said, "but make sure they understand we're going to do things our way. Slow and steady, simple and effective, patient and persistent." As the sun set over Earth, casting long shadows through the command center, Jack thought about the future. The galaxy was vast and full of threats. There would be more enemies, more battles, more challenges. But humans were ready. They didn't need to be the fastest or the most advanced. They just needed to be themselves, the race that looked at impossible problems and found simple solutions. The race that turned weaknesses into strengths. The race that named their most powerful warship after a slow animal and then used it to save the galaxy. The age of speed and beauty in space warfare was ending. The age of human practicality had begun. And somewhere in deep space, the escaped swarm ships spread the word to anyone who would listen. Beware of humans. They might be slow. They might be primitive, but they will find a way to win. The Tortoise had won the race, and the galaxy would never be the same. The space around Kepler Station was quiet now, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was the silence after a storm. Pieces of destroyed ships floated everywhere. Some were from the swarm, twisted metal and organic matter spinning slowly in the void. Others were the remains of beautiful Alliance ships that would never fly again. Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Tortoise, watching as the nanobots returned to the ship. They moved like a silver cloud, flowing back into the cargo bay where they had come from. Dr. Ellen White monitored their return carefully. "All units accounted for, Captain," she reported. "They consumed approximately 800 swarm ships and converted the material into more nanobots. Final count was 1.3 billion units before I ordered them to stop reproducing. Good work, Ellen. Make sure they're completely contained." "Already done, sir. They're programmed to shut down once they return to the storage chambers." The communication system came alive with dozens of messages. Every surviving Alliance ship wanted to talk to them. Amy Chen looked overwhelmed as she tried to sort through them all. "Captain, I have 17 priority messages from Alliance commanders," she said. "They all want to know how we did what we did. Tell them we'll explain at the debriefing. For now, we need to help with rescue operations." The battle had been costly for the Alliance. The Zephyrian fleet had lost 60% of their ships. The Vorthans had lost half. Even the mighty Melanites had suffered heavy casualties. But the humans hadn't lost a single ship. The USS Tortoise had some scorch marks on its armor and a few dents, but that was all. "Sir," Katie Ross said from navigation, "I'm detecting life signs in the debris field. Escape pods from the destroyed Alliance ships. Move us closer." "Steve, get rescue teams ready." Steve Johnson's voice came over the intercom. "Already on it, Captain. My Marines are switching from combat gear to rescue equipment." For the next 6 hours, the Tortoise moved through the battlefield like a huge gray ambulance. Its massive cargo bays, which the aliens had mocked as wasteful, now served as rescue centers. The ship's primitive magnetic grapples pulled in escape, pods that energy beams couldn't grab safely. They saved 342 Alliance crew members. Zephyrians who had laughed at the slow human ship now owed their lives to it. Vorthans who had called it ugly now saw it as the most beautiful thing in space. Admiral Kex Theta's flagship approached slowly. The crystal ship had survived but was badly damaged. Half its elegant structure was cracked and its quantum drive was completely dead. "Captain Morrison." The Admiral's voice came through the communication system. He sounded different now. The arrogance was gone. "Permission to come. Aboard your vessel for the debriefing?" "Permission granted, Admiral. Docking Bay 3 is ready for you." 20 minutes later, Jack stood in the Tortoise's main conference room. Admiral Kexa Theta was there, along with the surviving Alliance commanders. The room was plain gray metal, with simple chairs and a basic display screen. No fancy holograms or floating platforms, just a room. "This ship," the Admiral began slowly, "defeated the swarm almost single-handedly. We need to understand how." Jack nodded to Paul Davis, who stood up and activated the display screen. "The answer is simple, Admiral. We didn't try to be better at your game. We played a different game entirely." Paul showed images of the Tortoise's armor. "You all use energy shields. They're fast to deploy, use less mass than armor, and can be adjusted quickly. But the swarm's phase disruptors were designed specifically to break energy shields. Our armor is just metal and magnetic fields, 500 layers of it. The phase disruptors couldn't break it, because there was nothing to disrupt." Commander Sektal of the Zephyrians spoke up. His silver feathers were still ruffled from the battle. "But such armor must make your ship incredibly heavy and slow." "Yes," Jack said simply. "It does. Our ship weighs 15 times what yours does. But weight doesn't matter in space, and being slow meant we had to find other ways to win." Ryan Torres took over the presentation. "Our weapons are kinetic, not energy-based. We fire solid metal at high speed. No shields to interfere with, no energy signatures to track and adapt to. Just simple physics. Force equals mass times acceleration." "But the nanobots," Admiral Kexa Theta said. "Those are not simple technology." Ellen White stood up. "Actually, they are. Each nanobot is very basic. They only do 3 things: eat, reproduce, and return when called. The swarm couldn't adapt to them because there was nothing complex to adapt to. They're just tiny machines following simple programs." The Vorthan commander, a being made of living crystal named Shara, vibrated in what Jack had learned was confusion. "You're saying you beat the swarm by being primitive?" "No," Jack said. "We beat them by being practical. Every race in the Alliance tried to be faster, more advanced, more sophisticated. You competed with each other to have the most beautiful ships and the most exotic weapons. But humans ask different questions. We don't ask, how can we make this more advanced? We ask, how can we make this work?" Lisa Park added, "The swarm evolved to fight advanced civilizations. Their whole strategy was based on adapting to complex technology. But you can't adapt to a chunk of metal flying at you at 10% light speed. You can't outsmart armor that's just thick metal. You can't confuse nanobots that only know 3 commands." The room was quiet as the Alliance commanders absorbed this information. Finally, Admiral Kexa Theta spoke. "We owe you an apology, Captain Morrison. We mocked your ship for being slow and ugly. We put you in the back with the supply ships. We thought humans were too primitive to help." "No apology needed, Admiral," Jack said. Being underestimated was an advantage. The swarm ignored us until it was too late. But now they know, Commander Zektal said. They escaped. They'll tell others about your tactics. Good, Jack said, surprising everyone. Let them spread the word. Let every hostile force in the galaxy know that humans might be slow, but we're unstoppable. Let them know that we don't need fancy technology to win wars. Steve Johnson spoke for the first time. Besides, what we showed today was just one ship, with basic modifications. Imagine what happens when we really try. The Alliance commanders exchanged nervous looks. They were beginning to understand something important. Humans hadn't sent their best ship to this battle. They had sent a standard warship with some minor upgrades. If this was what humans could do without really trying, what would happen when they put in serious effort? Captain Morrison, Admiral Kexatheta said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I officially request that humanity share their ship designs and tactical approaches with all member races. Jack smiled. We'll be happy to share, Admiral, but I should warn you, our designs require a different way of thinking. You'll need to stop asking, how can we make this beautiful, and start asking, how can we make this work? You'll need to accept that sometimes older and simpler is better than newer and complex. And you'll need to be patient, Lisa added. Our ships will always be slow, but as you saw today, slow doesn't mean weak. The meeting continued for another hour as the humans explained more details. How their corridors were designed as mazes to confuse borders. How their life support systems were distributed so that damage to one section wouldn't affect others. How their crew trained in armor that other races thought was too bulky to be useful. By the end, the Alliance commanders looked at the gray, ugly conference room with new respect. It wasn't pretty, but it was solid. It would last forever, just like the humans' approach to war. As the alien commanders left to return to their ships, Admiral Kexatheta stayed behind. Captain, I have one more question. Yes, Admiral. Your ship is named Tortoise. I looked up the meaning. It's a slow animal from your world that carries a shell for protection. Did you name it that as a joke? Jack smiled. Have you heard of the old Earth story about the tortoise and the hare, Admiral? No. The hare was fast and confident. The tortoise was slow but determined. Everyone bet on the hare to win the race. But the hare got overconfident and took a nap. The tortoise just kept moving forward, slow and steady, and won the race. The Admiral's crystalline form flickered in understanding. So you knew from the beginning that being slow would be an advantage? We knew that being underestimated would be an advantage, Jack corrected. Speed is useful, Admiral, but patience and determination win wars. The battle inside the USS Tortoise was nothing like what the swarm expected. Steve Johnson and his Marines held every choke point. When the warrior drones tried to go around them, they found that doors had been sealed. When they tried to cut through walls, they discovered that every wall had armor inside it too. Deck 7 is clear, Steve reported over the radio. His armor was covered in green blood from the drones. Moving to Deck 5. Jack Morrison watched the internal security feeds from the bridge. The swarm drones were fast and deadly, but they were made for fighting in open spaces. In the narrow corridors of the Tortoise, they could only come two at a time. The Marines mowed them down like grass. Captain, more swarm ships are surrounding us, Ryan Torres reported. Count is now 300 enemy vessels in close proximity. Let them come, Jack said. Katie, give me a slow spin on our axis. Sir? Katie Ross looked confused. That will make us an easier target. It will also let all our railguns fire. In sequence. Do it. The massive ship began to rotate slowly. As it turned, the railguns fired one after another. Each shot destroyed multiple swarm ships. The enemy vessels were packed so close together that the metal slugs went through 3 or 4 at a time. Outside, the rest of the Alliance fleet watched in shock. The ugly human ship they had mocked was surrounded by enemies and winning. Every shot from its primitive weapons killed. Every attack on its simple armor failed. Captain Morrison, Admiral Kexatheta's voice came over the communication system. How is your ship surviving? Our best shields couldn't stop their weapons. We don't use shields, Admiral, Jack replied while watching another dozen swarm ships die. We use armor. Lots and lots of armor. But that's so primitive. Yes, it is. And that's why it works. Dr. Ellen White looked up from her science station. Captain, I'm detecting something interesting. The swarm is trying to communicate with each other, but they're confused. Their entire strategy is based on adapting to enemy technology. But our technology is too simple to adapt to. Explain, Jack said. Their phase disruptors are designed to interfere with energy fields. But we don't use energy fields. Their adaptation algorithms are trying to find a pattern in our armor, but there is no pattern. It's just metal and magnets, layer after layer. They literally don't know what to do with us, Amy Chen interrupted. Captain, incoming message from the Vorthan flagship. They're asking how we're doing this. Tell them we're happy to share the design specs after the battle, Jack said. For now, we need to focus on winning. The swarm pulled back from the tortoise, regrouping at a safe distance. They had lost over 400 ships trying to destroy one slow human vessel. The warrior drones inside the ship were all dead, killed, by Marines in bulky armor using ancient projectile weapons. They're learning, Lisa Park observed. They're staying out of railgun range. Good, Jack said. That means they're scared. Paul, how's our power situation? Paul Davis checked his displays. We're at 80%. The armor has taken some heating from all those energy weapons, but nothing serious. We can keep this up all day. Sir, Ryan said suddenly, the swarm is doing something new. They're combining. On the tactical display, dozens of swarm ships were connecting to each other, forming larger and larger vessels. 300 ships became 30 megaships, each one the size of a small moon. That's new, Lisa said quietly. The megaships opened, fire with weapons that dwarfed anything seen before. Beams of energy as wide as the tortoise itself streamed toward them. The layered armor held, but the ship shook violently. Hull temperature rising, Paul reported. They're trying to cook us. Katie, evasive maneuvers, Jack ordered. Sir, we're too slow to dodge those beams. We don't need to dodge. Just make us a moving target. Full speed ahead. The tortoise's massive engines roared to life. The ship lurched forward at its maximum speed of 0.3 times light speed. It was still slow compared to other ships, but it was fast enough to make the megaships adjust their aim. Ryan, target the connection points between the combined ships, Jack ordered. If they want to make themselves bigger targets, let's take advantage. The railguns fired again, this time aiming for where the swarm ships had joined together. The metal slugs hit with devastating force. The connections shattered, and the megaships began breaking apart. Direct hits, Ryan reported. They're combined. Forms are unstable. But the swarm wasn't done. Even as some megaships broke apart, others moved to surround the Alliance fleet's supply ships. They had realized that the tortoise, despite its power, couldn't be everywhere at once. Captain, they're going after the supply vessels, Amy reported urgently. The Alliance is asking for help. Jack made a quick decision. Ellen, is your special project ready? Dr. Ellen White smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. 40 million units? Ready to deploy, Captain. Launch them. Deep in the tortoise's cargo bay, doors opened to space. What came out looked like a cloud of dust. But it wasn't dust. It was millions of tiny robots, each one no bigger than a grain of rice. They spread out from the ship like fog, moving at the same 0.3 light speed as their mothership. What are those? Admiral Kexatheta demanded over the communications. Nanobots. Admiral. Our own little swarm. The tiny robots reached the first swarm ship. They landed on its hull and immediately began eating through the metal and organic material. Each nanobot consumed material and used it to make more nanobots. 1 became 2. 2 became 4. 4 became 8. By the stars, the Admiral whispered. They're eating the swarm ships. The swarm tried to respond, but how do you fight something? Too small to see? They fired weapons at the cloud, but the beams just passed through. They tried to outrun the nanobots, but more kept coming. Every piece of destroyed ship became material for more nanobots. Geometric progression is accelerating, Ellen reported. In 10 minutes, we'll have 200 million units. In 20 minutes, over 1 billion. The swarm's collective intelligence finally understood the trap. They couldn't destroy the tortoise, because its armor was too simple. They couldn't escape the nanobots because they kept multiplying. Every tactic they tried just made things worse. On the bridge of the tortoise, Jack watched as panic spread through the swarm fleet. They had never encountered an enemy like this. Not one that used primitive armor they couldn't penetrate. Not one that turned their own destroyed ships into weapons against them. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "they're retreating." She was right. The swarm ships were pulling back, moving toward the rift they had come through. But they were moving in disorder, no longer the perfectly coordinated force they had been. "Sir, should we pursue?" Ryan asked, his hand hovering over the weapons console. "No," Jack said. "Let them run. But make sure they understand something first. Amy, open a channel to the swarm." "Channel open, sir." Jack stood up and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the USS Tortoise. You came here thinking you were the apex predators of the galaxy. You were wrong. Humans might be new to space. Our ships might be slow. Our technology might be primitive. But we've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know that the simplest solution is often the best one. Remember this day. Remember that you were beaten not by speed or advanced technology, but by armor, bullets, and patience. Now run. Tell others what happened here." The swarm didn't reply with words, but their actions spoke clearly. They fled through the rift faster than they had arrived, leaving behind hundreds of destroyed ships and the shattered remnants of their reputation as an unstoppable force. 3 days passed quickly. The Alliance fleet waited in formation around Kepler Station. The USS Tortoise sat at the back with 4 supply ships, just as Admiral Kexatheta had ordered. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge, watching his crew work. Everyone was calm, but he could feel the tension in the air. "Captain, I'm detecting gravitational distortions," Katie Ross reported from her navigation station. "Something big is coming." "All stations, yellow alert," Jack ordered. Throughout the ship, yellow lights began flashing. "Amy, inform the Admiral we're detecting incoming signatures." Amy Chen worked her communications panel. "Sir, the Admiral says they already know. He reminds us to stay back and protect the supply ships." Before Jack could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. It started as a small rip, like someone had cut a hole in black paper. Then it grew larger and larger until it was miles wide. Ships began pouring out. Not tens or hundreds, but thousands. The swarm had arrived. They looked like someone had mixed insects with machines. Each ship was different but similar, with metal wings, organic-looking hulls, and weapons that seemed to grow from their bodies. They moved together like a flock of birds or a school of fish, turning and spinning as one massive group. "My God," Lisa Park whispered. "There must be 5,000 of them." 5,843, Ryan Torres said, reading his tactical display. "And more coming through the rift." Admiral Kexatheta's voice came over the fleet communication channel. "All ships, attack formation Alpha. Zephyrians begin attack run. Vorthans prepare for quantum strikes. Melanites charge plasma weapons." The battle began immediately. The Zephyrian needle ships shot forward at incredible speed, their laser weapons painting blue lines across space. They hit the swarm ships and danced away before the enemy could respond. The Vorthon crystal ships vanished and reappeared, firing their weapons and jumping away. The Melanite cruisers stayed at long range, launching balls of plasma that exploded like small suns. For the first 10 minutes, it looked like the Alliance was winning. Swarm ships exploded by the dozens. The beautiful alien vessels danced through, space untouched, too fast or too clever to be caught. "They're doing it," Danny Kim said from his operations station. "The Alliance is actually winning." Jack shook his head. "Wait for it." As if the swarm heard him, everything changed. The biomechanical ship suddenly moved differently. When a Zephyrian ship came in for an attack run, 3 swarm vessels were already waiting where it would be. The needle ship tried to dodge, but there was nowhere to go. Green beams hit it from all sides, its shields flashed and died. "Captain, the Zephyrian ship Star Whisper is in trouble," Amy reported. "They're calling for help." Before anyone could respond, the Star Whisper exploded. It happened so fast that one moment the beautiful silver ship was there, and the next it was just glowing debris. The same thing started happening everywhere. The swarm had learned the Zephyrians' flight patterns. They knew where each ship would be before it got there. 3 more needle ships died in less than a minute. The Vorthons were having their own problems. When they tried to quantum jump, they found themselves stuck halfway. Some kind of field was interfering with their drives. They materialized inside. Clouds of swarm ships with no way to escape. The Vorthon flagship is trapped, Ryan reported. They're taking heavy damage. Jack watched the tactical display. The melanite plasma weapons were still working, but the swarm was adapting to those. 2. Their ships were growing thicker armor that could absorb the plasma blasts. 20 minutes into the battle, the Alliance was losing badly. Half the Zephyrian fleet was gone. 3 Vorthon crystal ships were nothing but sparkles in space. Even the mighty melanite cruisers were pulling back. Captain, Amy's voice was tight with stress. Admiral Kexatheta is ordering all ships to fall back to defensive position Beta. Maintain our position, Jack ordered. Keep us between the swarm and the supply ships. Sir, the Admiral is calling us directly, Amy said. Jack nodded. Put him through. The Admiral's crystalline face appeared on the screen. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by fear. Captain Morrison, we need assistance. The swarm has adapted to all our weapons. Can your ship help? We'll do what we can, Admiral, Jack said calmly. What can you do? Your ship is slow and has primitive weapons. Sometimes primitive is better, Admiral. You're about to learn why. Jack cut the communication and turned to his crew. All stations, red alert. Paul, bring the special armor online. Ryan, prepare kinetic weapons. Steve, get your Marines ready. The swarm is about to learn what happens when they mess with humans. The USS Tortoise began moving forward. It was still slow, painfully slow compared to the other ships. But it moved, with purpose, like a tank rolling into battle. The first wave of swarm ships noticed the human vessel and broke off to attack it. They came in fast, firing their phase disruptors. These were the weapons that had destroyed every shield they had touched. The green beams hit the Tortoise and nothing happened. Direct hits on sections 4 through 8. Paul Davis reported. No damage. The layered armor is working perfectly. The secret was beautifully simple. While every other race used energy shields, humans had gone a different direction. The Tortoise's armor was made of alternating layers of compressed steel and electromagnetic fields. Each layer was only a few inches thick, but there were hundreds of them. The phase disruptors, designed to break energy shields, couldn't get through simple metal. Ryan, return fire, Jack ordered. Yes, sir. Firing kinetic weapons. The USS Tortoise had hidden its true weapons well. Panels on the hull slid open, revealing massive railguns. These were not elegant weapons. They were just big guns that fired solid metal slugs at very high speed. But in space, a chunk of metal moving at 10% light speed didn't need to be elegant. The first slug hit a swarm ship dead center. The biomechanical vessel didn't explode. It just crumpled, like a can being crushed. The slug went straight, through and hit the ship behind it and the ship behind that one too. Direct hit, Ryan said with satisfaction. 3 enemy ships destroyed with one shot. More swarm ships turned toward the Tortoise. They tried different weapons. Energy beams that had melted Zephyrian hulls just made the human armor glow a little. Plasma weapons that had burned through Vorthon crystal only scorched the paint. Missiles that had cracked melanite shields bounced off the thick armor plates. They're trying to adapt, Ellen White said from her science station. But they can't adapt to simple physics. Our armor is too basic for their sophisticated weapons to beat. The swarm tried a new tactic. If they couldn't destroy the ship from outside, they would take it from inside. 100 ships moved close and launched boarding pods. The small craft latched onto the Tortoise's hull and began cutting through. Hull breaches on decks 5, 7, and 9, Danny reported. Boarders incoming. Jack wasn't worried. Steve, they're all yours. Down in the corridors, Marine Captain Steve Johnson grinned. Finally, some fun. All Marines, the bugs are coming to visit. Let's show them human hospitality. The swarm's warrior. Drones cut through the hull and poured into the ship. They expected to find wide corridors and scared crew members. Instead, they found a maze. The tortoise's interior was designed for this. Every corridor was narrow. Every section had blast doors. Every turn was a potential trap. The first wave of drones ran straight into Steve and his Marines. The humans wore power armor that the aliens had mocked as primitive and bulky. But in the narrow corridors, bulky was good. The Marines filled the entire hallway, and their armor could take incredible punishment. "Fire," Steve ordered. The Marines didn't use energy weapons. They used guns that fired solid bullets, weapons that humans had been perfecting for centuries. The bullets tore through the warrior drones like they were made of paper. The USS Tortoise moved through space like an old truck on a highway full of sports cars. Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge, his hands behind his back, watching the view screen. Outside, alien ships zipped past them at speeds that made his ship look like it was standing still. "Another ship passing us on the left, Captain," said Commander Lisa Park. She was his second in command, a woman who never showed emotion even when she was angry. Right now, Jack knew she was very angry. The ship that passed them was from the Zephyrian fleet. It was silver and shaped like a needle, moving so fast it was just a blur of light. The pilot made sure to fly close enough for them to see. It was an insult, a way of showing off. "Let them pass," Jack said calmly. Lieutenant Ryan Torres sat at the weapons station. He was young, only 28, but one of the best weapons officers in the human fleet. "Captain, I'm picking up their communications. They're laughing at us." "What are they saying?" Jack asked, though he already knew. "They call us the Flying Brick. One of them just bet money that we won't make it to the station before next week." Ryan's fingers moved over his console. "Should I respond?" "No. Let them talk." The USS Tortoise was humanity's newest warship, but looking at it you would never know. It was a huge rectangular box, painted gray, with armor plates that stuck out, had weird angles. The engines were massive, taking up a third of the ship. They could only push the ship to 0.3 times the speed of light. The Zephyrians could go 0.95 times light speed. The Vorthons had quantum drives that let them jump through space instantly. Navigator Katie Ross looked up from her station. She was a small woman with red hair and freckles. "Captain, we'll reach Kepler Station in 4 hours at current speed." "Thank you, Katie." The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the engines. Everyone knew what the aliens thought of their ship. They had been hearing the jokes for weeks. The slow human turtle, the flying storage container, the ugliest ship in known space. Chief Engineer Paul Davis came onto the bridge. He was a big man with gray hair and oil stains on his uniform. "Captain, all systems are working perfectly. The special modifications are ready." Jack nodded. Paul was the only engineer he trusted with the Tortoise's secrets. The ship looked simple and old on the outside, but inside it was something very different. "Sir?" Amy Chen called from the communications station. She was young, just out of the academy, but sharp. "Message from Admiral Kex Theta. He wants to know if we need assistance getting to the station." The bridge crew looked at Jack. Everyone knew this was another insult. The Admiral was pretending to be helpful, but really he was making fun of their slow ship. "Tell the Admiral we're fine. We'll be there on schedule." Amy sent the message. A moment later she said, "Sir, he's asking if we're sure. He says he can send a tow ship." Ryan's hands formed fists. Katie muttered something under her breath. Even Lisa's calm face showed a flash of anger. "Tell him no thank you," Jack said. "We appreciate his concern." 3 hours later, the USS Tortoise finally arrived at Kepler Station. The station was huge, a spinning wheel in space where 50 different alien races came to trade and meet. Today, it was a military gathering point. The hegemony swarm was coming. The docking bay was full of beautiful ships. The Zephyrian fleet looked like a school of silver fish. The Vorthon vessels were made of crystal that caught the light like diamonds. The Melanite cruisers glowed with blue plasma energy. And then there was the USS Tortoise, looking like someone had parked a gray shoebox among sports cars. Jack and Lisa walked through the station to the meeting room. Aliens stopped to stare at them. Some pointed and whispered. Others laughed openly. Humans were new to the Galactic Alliance. They had only been members for 5 years. Most aliens thought humans were primitive, barely worth including. The meeting room was circular with a floating platform in the middle. Admiral Kexatheta stood there, his crystalline body catching the light. He was 8 feet tall, and his voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. "Welcome, everyone," the Admiral said. "We face a great threat. The hegemony swarm has destroyed 12 civilizations. They consume everything in their path. Their biomechanical ships adapt to any weapon after seeing it once. They are the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known." A hologram appeared showing thousands of ships that looked like metal insects. They moved together like a single creature, surrounding and consuming a planet in minutes. "Each fleet will have a role," the Admiral continued. "The Zephyrians will use their speed for hit and run attacks. The Vorthons will use their quantum jumps to confuse the enemy. The Melanites will provide long-range plasma bombardment." Hikada paused and looked directly at Jack. "The human vessel will guard our supply ships in the rear. We cannot risk losing our slower ships in direct combat." The room was quiet. Jack felt every eye on him. Someone whispered something about dead weight. Another voice said, "Why did we even let them come?" Jack stood up slowly. "Admiral, we're happy to serve wherever we're needed." "Good," Kexatheta said. "Try to keep up when the battle starts. We won't be able to slow down to protect you." More laughter filled the room. Jack sat back down. Lisa leaned over and whispered, "They have no idea what's coming." "That's the point," Jack whispered back. After the meeting, Jack returned to the Tortoise. He called all senior officers to the conference room. Steve Johnson was there, captain of the ship's Marines. He was built like a boxer and had scars on his face from 100 fights. Dr. Ellen White sat next to him, a thin woman with glasses who ran the science department. Danny Kim from operations was typing on a pad, running calculations. "They've put us in the back with the supply ships," Jack told them. Steve snorted. "Let me guess, they think we're too slow and weak for real fighting." "That's exactly what they think," Jack said. "And that's perfect. When the swarm adapts to their weapons and their speed stops working, they'll learn what humans are really capable of." Paul Davis grinned. "The armor modifications are ready. Those phase disruptors they're so worried about won't even scratch our paint." "The nanobots are prepared," Ellen added. 40 million units ready to deploy." "My Marines are ready for boarding parties," Steve said. "We've been training in the maze corridors for weeks." Jack looked at his crew. They were ready. The aliens thought the USS Tortoise was a joke, a slow, ugly ship that didn't belong in their beautiful fleet. They would learn differently soon enough. "Everyone, get some rest," Jack ordered. "The swarm will be here in 3 days. When they arrive, we follow orders and stay in the back. Let the others have their moment of glory. When things go wrong, and they will go wrong, we'll be ready." The crew left the conference room. Jack stayed behind looking at the tactical display. The Tortoise might be slow, but it had teeth. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't need to be fast or pretty to be dangerous. Sometimes, slow and steady really did win the race.